Hi, this is your host Apil Bhartiya and welcome to TFI Let's See. And today we have with us once again Ryan Taylor, VP of Customer Success and Solutions Engineering at Transposit. Ryan, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be back, actually.
It's my pleasure to host you again. And in June, recently, you folks made a lot of announcement, made a lot of enhancement to your product, to AI teammates and everything. Before we talk about those improvements, without we see them in action, quickly tell us what is Transposit all about.
Yeah, so Transposit is a lot of things, but I think primarily what we would focus on is incident management, on-call management, in the context of IT management, right? So ultimately, I think for people that are new to Transposit, I think the differentiator for us is automated workflows around your process. And then once the process is actually started, we enable you to actually move towards resolution. That's the biggest differentiator for me, and also something that in a past life I spent a lot of time building. Right, which is, hey, I don't want to just be great at declaring an incident. I want to be great at resolving an incident. I want to get better at actually preventing customer impact, business impact, and just technically constant improvement for not just engineering, but also for operators as well. So we are an incident management platform primarily focused on resolution.
And let's also talk about AI Teammate. That's where some announcement came out in June. So let's start with the intro. What is it, and how it helps engineering teams not only to improve their efficiency, but also, as you said, to not just notify them, but turn that notification into an actionable item.
Yeah, yeah. So I love talking about these things because I have this great experience where I started in software engineering, 20 years ago, and I was so lucky. And I'm going to call some people out. I kind of thought about this. I worked with a guy named Chris Reed, and Chris Reed was doing cacti and Nagios. This is like '97, I'm guessing, and I was just amazed. And I would sit with this guy, and I would ask him 20 questions. What are we doing? What are you looking for? What are some signals that I can see? And I would learn so much from sitting with that person. And then, I had so many people at this company. Mark Walker was kind of like our business liaison. He had come from, the business side, but had come into the IT services side. And it was just so cool to have all of this expertise right in the room. And so it was a very swivel chair organization. I could turn and say, "Hey, Mark, what's going on? Hey, Brian, what's going on? Hey, Jeff, what's going on? What should I be looking for?" And I love the idea of AI Teammate because if I could take all of the context of all of those conversations and I could make them accessible in a way that actually makes my job easier, so I wouldn't have to swivel chair, or I wouldn't even be dependent on Mark, Brian, or Chris being there. Like if they typed this, if they said, these things in a meeting, they become knowledge. And I think this is a big part of what AI Teammate intends to do. It's not just about actionability. It's not just about summarization. It's about contextualization. It's about being able to pull that information from the context of your organization and make heads or tails of it. It doesn't mean it's actionable immediately, but it certainly puts you closer to actionability or resolution, as it were. So AI Teammate is something that we've actually built internal to our product, where the context of your organization, whether that's Slack or Confluence or Jira, actually becomes an answerable question that any engineer might have. So you can imagine, and going to your question, how does this make us better? I think this is really simple. Imagine the company knowledge at your fingertips and just a question away. That's pretty powerful in itself. But if you add actionability to that, I think now you're actually talking about something. This is what Brian would do. And because we are an automation platform underneath, guess what? I can actually suggest to you, hey, you can run this automation. You can even come back to me and say, what is the risk of running this automation? What has happened in the past? And I think that alone just moves engineering response so far ahead. I'm not interested in helping you write code in that way. I'm interested in helping you operate the code base and the infrastructure that it's running on in a way that prevents you from actually impacting your business. So AI Teammate is, that was a very long explanation, and I called out a lot of people, but ideally I think what we want to focus on is knowledge, right? It's the knowledge of every potential knowledge worker in your organization at your fingertips and in the context of an incident or an alert or just triage in general.
Can you talk about the evolution of AI teammates? What kind of enhancement, improvement you folks made to it recently?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I was talking to a friend the other day and I said, summarization has become kind of commoditized. Everybody has a summary feature. I mean, whether it's Zoom or MS Teams or literally any product on the market. And I think where we really made some headway is to say, hey, you're already having these conversations. And it is possible that there is something that's happened in the past at this company, whether it was via voice or text, or I should say written text or voice over a recorded video, where you go, there was a learning there, and we missed that learning because, let's face it, it's a high velocity incident with one focus, which is resolution, and so you kind of miss these little nuanced things. And so it was just, what if we took the context of all of these things and started building knowledge from it? And so instead of summarization, now you're looking at the retrieval augmentation. Not only is it the context of the incident or the alert, it's things that have been done to support building that application, to support triaging that application in the past, resolving that incident or that alert in the past. One of the things that was always interesting is like the first thing that anybody ever did when we had an incident, in a previous life, was go and look at changes. What changed in the last 15 minutes? You can imagine that if you have a change stream and that is contextualized to the incident by service name, by person, by team, now all of a sudden it's like, as I'm starting to look at this alert, I'm also being notified that there was recent changes to the code base that's driving that service. So it's really about kind of pulling knowledge, less summarization. And I really like the fact that we're working on ontology. We want you to know the who, what, when, where, why, and how of an alert, right? So we're telling you, hey, Joseph did this. This is what he did. We've seen this previously because of historical information, and this is how we're going to move forward in solving this. I also like the idea that instead of just summarization, we're looking for those opportunities for improvement, and we're telling the customer. So if you run an activity in Transposit, we actually say, hey, these are the key events. These are the things that took place here that maybe you missed or maybe you captured. But if you didn't, these are the things that you can now make actionable, whether that's a post-incident review or just a conversation. But I think we're really moving forward to building knowledge from failure. And I don't know if anybody's ever said that before, but I kind of like the idea of the continuous improvement and building knowledge from that failure so that you can prevent failure or be better at resolving failure.
I'm curious that when we look at some of these enhancement, as you're talking about, giving some anecdotal examples how teams do that, but then at the same time, you folks are also doing a lot of things which are not traditionally known in the incident response space. To quote Steve Jobs, like if you ask people, they will say they just want faster horse. So there are a lot of things that you folks are doing, which is based on the feedback or the problem that your teams feel that when your clients face. At the same time, you are also making a lot of improvement, which is pushing things that did not exist. So what is the driver behind these innovations at Transposit?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you talk to one customer, you've talked to exactly one customer, right? Like everybody is so different. I think actionability is the part that I kind of drive from my product side, right? Which is, I don't want you to pay. And I'm going to give some very specific examples here, but I don't want you to get an alert and page me. I personally see no value in that. What I would love for you to do is get context on the alert. Give me that context, attempt to resolve or triage or get more information, and then page me with that information. So I think this all moves forward. And the reason that we keep kind of pushing the envelope and really focusing on knowledge and automation based on that knowledge is because we want to get people closer to the resolution. We want people to spend their time working on the things that they're paid for. And there's a couple things that we say that maybe I agree with and maybe I don't. I've heard the saying, engineers don't engineer. They spend too much time firefighting. I would only say engineers can't engineer because they are constantly fighting. That's it. Like, it's not that they're choosing to run the business as opposed to build the business, it's because it's what's required. And so if I can kind of shift that a little bit and give you more time to build the business, I can't see that that's not great for your organization and specifically for your engineers. I mean, that is ideally what they came into the company to do. And so I don't want your team to spend as much time firefighting or triaging or writing knowledge documentation, which, 50-50. Some do, some don't. But I don't want you to have to spend your time doing that. I want you to spend your time building a business, not running that business from a tech perspective.
Let's look at two different things. One is the pains that you're easing, you're addressing and solving. Second is to make their life easier also.
I think for most companies, it is fire and forget. So ideally, what you're doing is you're receiving an alert or an incident, as it were. And when that alert is received, you're passing it on to some kind of schedule and saying, hey, contact this person either via Slack, text, whatever. That is great. It is also highly commoditized at this point. You've got PagerDuty, you've got Grafana, you've got a significant number of people that are kind of entering this on-call solution, which is great. Again, no shade towards anyone at that point. Those tools are required. And for most people, I think it's enough. Now, here's where the differentiator comes in. You look at something like PagerDuty, and they have a secondary tool called Rundeck. Again, I think we can all agree that for certain companies, that's just not, it's too heavy. It's too high touch. It's too custom to the business. Here's what I'll add. What we do with on-call is a lot different. We think of on-call as part of your workflow. So if I'm going to receive an incident or I'm going to receive an alert, I've already kind of said this, right? Like I kind of want to know the context of the alert. I kind of want to know what I should be checking. So again, bringing this knowledge piece into it, maybe I need to reference a Confluence page. Maybe I need to reference, a documentation page. Maybe I need to look at a dashboard in Datadog or Grafana or something else. Imagine, if you will, that it's just part of your workflow. It's not the end result of an alert or incident. It is part of the incident or alert workflow. I'm going to gather information. And again, so our automation platform specifically, I think we connect to over 1,000 APIs. I can actually write a workflow that says every time this alert or this type of incident is created, these are the 5 things I'm going to do. And here's the differentiator for me on my side. Communication is such a huge part of people's workflow that is completely separated in those simple on-call tools. And the reason is because it's one-to-one. There's one alert and one page that goes to a team, a service, a person. Whereas in a workflow, I can say, hey, I actually know that this is going to be an impactful incident or make it part of my workflow. If it's a Sub 1, contact customer support. If it's a Sub 2, notify my IT services team. Whatever that is, but you can kind of rule-based build your workflow in a way that actually makes you super efficient. Otherwise, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to get my alert. I'm going to start the triage process. I'm going to realize that it's going to be impactful. Now I have to stop triaging and go talk to another team. It's just it's an ill use of your time. We want you to be efficient. And if we can automate that just by simple notifications, it's a great workflow. It's a great workflow that isn't focused on the on-call piece. It's communication, right? And part of that communication is communicating to you that you need to be engaged, but also letting other people know that they might be impacted. So it's a little bit different in that we don't look at on-call as a static workflow. It is a very dynamic workflow based on contextual information of an alert or an incident and rules that you can create, or we'll give them to you. We have sane defaults in that way. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to say, hey, look, if you need to contact someone, you can do that every time an incident's created.
And as you make these enhancement improvements to your offerings, how much training, retraining it's needed for engineers? Because a lot of features, functionality are there, which you added and they are not even aware of. But you also want your customer to take full advantage of all these lovely, beautiful features you have added. So how do you work with the teams?
One of the things that we do is we've built a product library or an automation library. And those aren't just simple pieces of a workflow. They are defined workflows. So for example, we have a workflow that will automatically create a Slack channel. We have in that same workflow, we'll automatically create a Zoom channel. Generally, when I'm working with a customer, all of this automation that kind of happens always has one little lever that needs to be pulled, right? Well, we only do a Zoom call with all of the engineers on all hands on deck if it's a sub 0 or a sub 1. Great, totally fine. It's as simple as saying, if this incident is a sub 0 or a sub 1, start the Zoom call. If it's not, it's going to be ignored. So we have a lot of flexibility there, but we offer you a library out of the box. And we do this with customers that come on with us now, where it's just, hey, here's the automation library. Here are the templates that are predefined for you. And you can immediately use these templates without any changes to them. You could daisy chain them. So you could actually have a workflow that shows, multiple templates and said, hey, this is our workflow. So we have a real customizable workflow for that. And, again, man, it's so crazy how fast Transposit has moved in these ways, because we get this feedback and we immediately make it actionable. So one of the things that we're going to start doing is opening up our on-call API so that you can actually do some contextual information outside of Transposit, call the page, and then have that all end up in Transposit as your source of truth or source of truthiness. So again, just in further enhancing that knowledge piece. And actually, I'll probably show some part of that in a demo later, where we're actually showing actionability around paging. You can imagine where internally we can do this, but now we're going to expose it to customers to be able to build tooling around it, where an alert fires and it contains, a certain service name or a certain location. And based on that location, you could do a dynamic on-call. We do that again already, but now you have the complexity that you can work with that. And I think it's just moving things forward. It's moving on-call as a piece of a workflow. It's not the end result. It's not fire and forget.
As you're really talking about, that when something happened, you may have to reach out to a certain team, certain person, you may have to refer to a certain resources. Do you also, in a way, use, of course, Gen AI technologies to dig into the company resources and offer it to them so that they don't have to go and figure it out themselves?
Yeah, 100%. So I kind of touched on this earlier. So with and internally we call this data magic. To be fair, it's just a knowledge product. We call it data magic because if you connect a data source, we begin indexing that data source. And one of the things that we did as we were kind of working on this model was we built a fake company. That fake company had employees, and those employees had specific things that they were great at. And so what was always really neat is, hey, and I think you'll see some of this in the demo. It was like, hey, I'm having a problem with Nginx running in CloudWatch. I'm sorry, in AWS, and I'm getting some CloudWatch alerts. I literally am unfamiliar with this. Who is the person I should contact? And it's amazing to kind of see this feedback where it's like, David is the expert on Nginx running in AWS for our company, and this is the person that you should contact. Now, granted, we've kind of stuffed we stuffed the data full of keywords that would potentially answer that question. But what we've done is we've actually built this ontology, and I mentioned this earlier: the who, what, when, where, why, and how. The who is as important to us as the what, right? So it's not, hey, this happened. It is, when this has happened previously, who was the person that offered the most value in troubleshooting this, or the most knowledge and understanding of this technology? And so we do a very, very good job of surfing that. Now, surfacing it. I will say this, there is a need to develop your workflow based on those answers. So we're not going to automatically contact David every time there's an Nginx alert. David would hate us. That would mean his on-call schedule would be 24/7, 7 days a week, 365. We don't want to do that. But when you get into a situation where David has answered questions in the past, you can say, what has David said about Nginx running in this particular, for this service? That's contextual information. That's really, really helpful. And of course, I can reach out to David as well if I want to do that. But it's interesting to kind of see Gen AI and this ontology that's really helpful of the who, what, when, where, why, and how kind of come together in a knowledge product that answers questions and makes you actionable as an engineer who's on call. And I'm sure that we'll talk about this later. And look, you're bringing people into an organization, new people. And it doesn't matter what your resume says. You might have all of the experiences with Kubernetes in the world. And if you've seen one Kubernetes environment, you've seen one Kubernetes environment. Like this is really what it boils down to. And so having that context as things progress in your career, or as you take on that first on call, Imagine being able to have the all of the context in that generated by AI, granted on our own RAG stack, but to you on that day. It's You're not asking Chat GPT a generalized questions about Kubernetes. You're asking Transposit about the Kubernetes environment at Transposit, right? Like that is far more useful knowledge, and it's also probably safer as well.
Now, I also want to talk about Gen AI. Talk about the role it is playing. I mean, I have had this discussion with Transport a couple of times, but I do want to talk about, and what I love about the way you folks do with it is more in the product, not just the hype. So how are you folks leveraging Gen AI to bridge the gap between knowledge and people's their skills and the options available to them?
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of AI, I think, is it's not a human replacement; it's a human assistant, which is how you end up at AI Teammate. Again, I'm thinking back in my own past and how many times I've learned from someone else, and that knowledge now becomes my knowledge. The truth is that there's a wealth of knowledge within your company, and I'm sure everybody watching can probably think of a time where they didn't understand a product decision or they didn't understand a business decision. And in the context of, imagine for a moment that you had access to those internal conversations and maybe summarized and potentially abstracted a little bit. But imagine being able to say, what is our goal in this? And maybe it's to increase revenue or to increase subscriptions or whatever it is. Just imagine being able to ask those questions and then drive some automation out of it, right? I think from a prioritization perspective as well, it's very, very important. We've all been part of an incident or an alert where maybe the first thing I did was worthless. I don't know, worthless is probably too strong of a word, but it wasn't effective in solving the problem. And then we did something as a secondary step, same result. But that third step actually was the thing that kind of moved us closer to resolution. So imagine just being able to learn, continuously learning from that. So the way that we approach AI is a little bit different in that uh, our CEO, Devani, will say AI, AI, AI. And not because it's the buzzword keyword. It is, we look for an AI driven solution to a specific problem first, and then we kind of backfill a product driven initiative, right? The truth is not every problem is solvable by AI, and nor should it be. But as an assistant, as a teammate, it can actually help inform far more than just custom built software could do. So for me, it's been very helpful. Let's be honest, whether your company allows you to use AI in their environment or not, everyone's using it. If you're working in tech, whether that's in a private browser session or on your phone, it is being accessed. People are definitely using it to communicate better, to learn more, to identify that tree that's in their backyard that they've never looked up. Like, it is being used on a daily basis. We're getting to a point now where it's just a tool. The hammer didn't replace humans. It made humans more effective at building things, right? Like, this is really where we're getting to. And I think, in the future, it'll become kind of ambiguous. It'll be everywhere. And to the point that you have to be forward thinking of how you solve these problems and how you incorporate AI in a very intelligent and smart and secure way. I'll end on that, but we think of AI as the solution first, and then eliminate AI as the potential solution to build products.
Can you also talk about how is Transposit's AI teammate different from, let's say, ChatGPT? How you set yourself apart from it?
I think the main thing that I would add here is we're specifically designed for IT service management, IT operations, right? But that's the biggest thing. And it's also integrated directly into Transposit platform as far as workflows, but also contextual information as well, right? So you get access to the real-time incident data as well as system information as a result of the connectivity. And you also are able to take more consistent actions in the Transposit platform, but we're also customizable to your organization's specific process and tools. And so I would only add that, for example, if you're using GitHub as your documentation repository, I'm able to actually use that. If you're using Confluence, I'm able to use that. If you're using GitHub, I'm able to pull requests in real time. I'm able to operate within that framework of incident response or incident management or IT services. So the last thing, and probably the most important thing, is if I say that we want to focus on continuous improvement within your organization, I want to stress that we can also learn from your organizational incident patterns, right? So if you're capturing data, whether that's voice or text, I'm actually contextualizing that information as it's happening. Then if that same incident spins up 30 seconds after we resolve this one, the context of the thing that we just did is now part of the new thing, right? So ChatGPT, and I'd said this with the Kubernetes example earlier, right? I want to go and understand more about potential, resolution to an issue. You hit ChatGPT, it has nothing to do with your environment. It is, as a best practice or as documented, this is what would probably work. This is very Stack Overflow or whatever. That's fine. There is a place for that. I don't want to diminish that. There is specific commands that will work almost every single time if you were to copy pasta them. However, in your environment, you might require a separate parameter. You might require, a production flag. So I'm going to be able to tell you that because our AI is going to be supplementing general AI knowledge with your contextual information. Now, again, I've said we'll index all of these different data sources, and we will. Look, there's no doubt that if you're not great at documentation, you will not get great results. I would just say, don't think of it as the written documentation. Again, we have our incident bot, or technically our bot, period, can join any ongoing phone call as well. So if you were in an incident and you were Teams, Zoom, Google Meet, I can actually join that conversation. I don't do anything. I'm contextualizing and transcribing in real time, pulling out those key events, and I'm looking for process improvement opportunities, automation opportunities. So I'm technically an excellent scribe is really what it boils down to. And I am singularly focused as an incident scribe on improving this process. I am not there to give advice on the next steps. I am only there as a historian. We do have obviously some recommendation, suggestion capability built into that, but you get the gist. We're very capable of kind of pulling out the gold of these different types of conversations. So you don't have to be great at documentation, though it's certainly helpful. But we can be great at documentation on your behalf, which I think is awesome.
Excellent. Now it's time to see all of this in action. So let's see the demo.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. Going to take a beat here for a second, just kind of let you take this in. So this is our web UI, and you can see that we're primarily focused on incidents. We have no active severe incidents, but we also have alerts down here. And I'm going to lightly touch on settings really quick. So we allow you to bring in alerts from any number of sources. Does not matter to us. We have a pretty simple data parser. So if you send an alert to this UI, to this API endpoint, we will actually show you what your alert looks like and allow you to, with visual data parsing, choose the fields that matter to you. So this is that normalization piece. And I only touch on this to say that it doesn't matter what tool you're sending to us from. We support a lot out of the box, but it's really important to know you can send us whatever you want. So it's not tied to a very specific use case. We don't say Datadog. We only accept Datadog alerts. We accept all of them. And so I want to quickly show you what I was talking about earlier. So we have an automation hub, and our automation hub is just a collection of full workflows. So for example, if as part of your incident management workflow, you create an incident MS Teams channel, or you create an incident Slack channel, or you create a Jira issue, all of those are available at the top. And you can see those are our most used pieces of automation. But you also have the ability to automatically archive your incident channel. You have the ability to add an Ops Genie on call. We definitely have on-call capabilities, but believe it or not, we try to meet most of our customers where they're at. And so if they're already using Ops Genie, why not enable that workflow? So you're going to see that throughout our platform as well. We're pretty tool agnostic when it comes to some of the workflows that we've enabled. So that said, I am going to do something very quickly, and I'm going to switch over to Slack because let's face it, I'm going to meet you where you are. So I'm receiving an alert from CloudWatch. and this is an Nginx alert. So the first thing that you're going to notice is it's red. This is a new alert. And there are multiple options here, right? So I have the option to create an incident from alert, or I have the ability to resolve alert. Now, I've told you already, like one of the things that I really think moves us forward is when you start to think about, what do I need to do? I am on call for this team. What is the thing that I need to spend time doing? Well, I've already said the first thing I'm going to do is check for recent changes. So we use GitHub Action Deployments here for our marketing website. We use Netlify. And so you'll see immediately, like this was a recent change. It was updated just now. Before that, it was updated 50 minutes ago, updated 2 days ago before then. But we also are able to pull this real graphonograph. This is actually real right now. Granted, time is a problem in this conversion here, but you can see it's 11:53. It's 11:53 here. So you're basically seeing some context. Like we're definitely seeing website users drop. And as part of this, I'm going to bring Data Magic, our knowledge product, into the context of this conversation. And so Nate Smalley, who's one of our sales engineers, says, hey, I'm new to on-call duties. How should I handle this alert? And we're passing that straight in. I'm new to on-call. What are my on-call roles? We're going to actually tell you what you should be doing, right? We should manage the incident to resolution. And this is based on contextual information coming out of Confluence and Slack. And then it says, hey, to triage the 4xx errors on Nginx hosted AG website, you can follow these steps. Let's check the Nginx logs. Let's verify the server configuration, investigate recent code changes. I need assistance with Kubernetes. Who's my expert? And I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier too. Who is the person? Who can I contact? Who is the person that could best help me solve this? Well, David. David specializes in platform engineering and his expertise with Kubernetes and Nginx. So you're getting closer and closer and closer. This is really interesting because this is new. I've got contact Alice. I also have a run book on how to So without asking for the run book, it brought me that context. I can actually check that. That's pretty cool. And then ultimately, Netlify is currently operational according to the most recent check. So we're actually doing a check on Netlify to make sure that they're up and running. So this is just the alert workflow. It is pretty busy, but you can see we are trying to emulate questions that real on-call engineers might want to ask during this time. At this point, if I wanted to create an incident for this alert, you can see that all of the contextual information from the alert moves over to the incident. We are automatically deduping, correlating on the back end for all alerts. And when I do this, and this goes back to just communications, right? I've created an incident. You can see that here. But if I go to the on-call channel, you'll see I am notifying the on-call channel of every single change, every single incident that I'm now driving forward. So immediately you get a contextual piece of information that says, hey, this is what's going on. And as part of that workflow, we've created this incident channel. This is very much what every company does when it comes to this level of incident creation or workflow automation. This is where people start and kind of stop, right? So ultimately, I'm creating an incident activity. I have the ability to page on call. If I click this, I can page a team, a service, or a person. But I also have access to runbooks. So these are that human in the loop automation that you were talking about. This is the ability to actually choose to run an automation, or maybe it requires some feedback before I do that. And so all of those runbook items are available to you. So here's your brand new incident management channel. You can always visit our admin guide, our user guide, and incident help. What great, that's awesome. But also what you see is an on-call engineer who's already joined this ongoing call or this ongoing incident and is providing feedback. She's the engineering on call. Alice is. David's already here. We know David's our expert. Alice is checking into it. And then we kind of see our ability to hit our knowledge platform and say, hey, we're seeing a ton, list 3 things, and we're going to get an answer here as well. So we're moving, progressing. This part, obviously slow moving, but let's check this out real quick. Let's see what's going on. I'm going to view a summary, and this goes back to what I was saying. I'm watching this conversation as Transposit. You notice none of this has actually been noted as a key event. Well, this is the description. here's what we're doing right now. No issues detected on the back end, indicating potential over provisioning. We know that's not the problem yet, but we're investigating, and the on-call engineer has begun immediate investigation. Health checks are passing for all components. Backend servers are processing existing connections, but not registering new connections. So all of this is in the context, and we're pulling these things out in real time. Now, here's what's really interesting. If I were to join our bot to your ongoing Zoom channel, we would also get feedback from there as well. So those key important things that are said during that phone call would also be notified. You also heard me say, hey, we now know that this is business impacting. And so Bob says, hey, we might need to contact customer support. That was automated. Automatically sent that over to the customer support channel with the latest updates. And that will update in place. And so you have this entire conversation. Look, if you think this is busy, join a real incident, because real incidents are wild in the amount of just talking going on at any point. So we're actually moving this to investigating as an official state. And I'm going to continue the conversation. We're going to get to a piece of this where I'm going to resolve this incident. I'm going to stop that from happening, actually, just so we can get to kind of like some real uses, right? So we have a deployment log. We again get the most recent changes. We definitely see the website drop here, but I'm going to move this forward, and we might see some duplication of messages, but I want to get to the best part of all of this. So I'm going to move this to monitoring. We're going to say we rolled back that change. Everything's kind of looking great. You can actually see unexpected front-end changes detected in recent deployment via Terraform configurations. You saw the team is considering executing a rollback. So you're seeing this little status snapshot update in real time based on the context of this conversation. And if I hit close, let's see what happens. So when I close an incident, there are a couple things that I'm going to help you with. Now, one, I'm going to give you a summary of this incident. And I think that's very, very important, right? That when I hit incident summarize or the / command incident summarize, I'm going to give you the context of that incident. But now I'm going to give you something that you can use in other places. And so let's talk about that. So we're working on the incident summary for you. This is all driven by AI. And again, context. This is what's going to separate us from simple chat GPT. And I'm going to actually look at the outcome of this incident. So experience a critical outage. This is at this time, the on-call engineer started investigating unexpected front-end changes, proposal to roll back recent changes using a command from Data Magic. So you're getting that context, but check this out. Again, because I'm tool agnostic, I don't care what you want to do with this information. You want to send it to ServiceNow as a problem ticket? Great. You want to send it to Confluence as a PIR doc? Absolutely. I'm going to help you do that. So here is just a standard post-incident review doc that's part of the Confluence library. And I've actually included this executive summary so that you have some context for this incident. Now, here's what's really cool, and I'll switch back over to this. I also have the capability of moving this forward in a way that makes this easier to communicate to an executive team. Now, what we do is we use the post-incident review doc published in the SRE handbook, and we build this for you. So we give you a summary of the impact based on the conversation, the customer impact based on that conversation, root cause and mitigation. Awesome. We give you next steps. Engineering teams will continue to analyze the incident, work on permanent solutions. So we're actually writing an AI generated document that is a little higher level than the in the weeds of Nginx and Kubernetes and logs, and saying, hey, this is the impact of this particular event. And so ultimately, I'm giving you two pieces, right? I'm giving you the key events, the summary on one side for the tech side, and then I'm also giving you some contextual information that you can share with a technical person. And again, that's it. From alert to incident, you are set, and all throughout this incident, I can actually go see I was not paged. That is great news. I never had to page because I was engaged the entire time.
Ryan, thank you so much for taking time out today. Now, first talk about these improvements, and also thanks for the demo. And as usual, I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Thank you.
My pleasure. Absolute awesome to talk to you again. And if there's anything I can do for anybody watching, happy to help you. It is very likely you will be working with me if you were to to choose Transposit as your incident management platform. I appreciate it.